doing the recording here. Good. So yeah, asking yourself, what am I grateful for? And I'll tell you what the other 3 things are. Otherwise, the whole class, you're going to be hating me, being like, what were the other 3 things? Because there was 4. But we're going to focus on gratitude. But the other 3 things were label your emotions, which we did a class on emotions. Make decisions. We all know that living in that indecisive place can just feel horrible. So your brain really likes if you just make a decision. Doesn't have to be the right decision. Make it. The brain will be happy. You can always make a decision, a different one later. And the 4th one was give hugs. So yeah, of course, that's going to make you happy. I think just that whole idea of community. All right, so let's focus on gratitude. Start by lying down. So I'm going to get you, I like to start lying down because I find that's just a comfortable way for us to center in. Good. Yeah, so get down there. And you're going to lay in a way that is comfortable for your body. Okay, good. I see some of you adjusting, so it can be nice to have your knees bent, especially if you feel your lower back calling out to you. And some of you, it might be okay first thing in the morning to have legs long. And you're allowed to just wiggle around, adjust. Until you feel comfortable. And start to close your eyes once you find a comfortable position laying down. Just check in with yourself. Notice how you're feeling physically today. Are there any aches and pains in the body? What parts of our body feel good, free of tension? See what kind of emotions and thoughts you brought with you. Beautiful. Good morning, Bonnie. And then get a sense of how all that stuff, how you're feeling physically, how you're feeling emotionally. How's that affecting our breath? How is it that you're breathing this morning? There's no right or wrong answer here. We just want to get a sense of what our natural breath is doing. I want you to place one hand on your belly, one hand over your heart. And see if you can start to soften up through your belly a little bit. Does that encourage a deeper breath? You don't have to force the breath deeper, but just noticing if you unlock the tension in all the layers of the belly, what happens? And start to ask yourself, what am I grateful for? And see what arises. Let your mind start to look for those silver linings. What am I grateful for? we ask ourselves this question, what am I grateful for? It gets us to start to look for the positive aspects of our life. And that simple act increases serotonin and dopamine production in our brain. And it's not the actual finding something that's so important, it's the remembering to look in the first place. What am I grateful for? And as you ask yourself that silently, what am I grateful for? And things start to spring up, I want you to pay attention to how your body feels. Okay, did anything change when you asked yourself that question? What am I grateful for? Did maybe your shoulders relax a little bit? Did some tension leave the jaw? What's your experience of this? Maybe you feel this warm sense of energy in your body, prana, life force. And start to move the hands over the eyes. I want you just to enjoy a little bit of darkness for a second while you set a personal intention for your day. Heels of the hands over the eyes. It could be related to gratitude, or you might be setting an intention completely separate. Whatever comes to mind comes to heart. Whatever seed you're planting, whatever you're trying to cultivate more of, start to surround that with your being, with your breath. Imagine that it's already so. And let's start to move and wake up the body. On an inhale, we're going to take a full body stretch. You might want to take your legs long. Arms are overhead, and this is going to just look different for everyone. I want you to really tap into your body, what it needs. You could interlace fingers, roll the palms away from you. You could rotate your wrists. You could do little jazz hands, little jazz fingers. You could be moving your face. You could be rocking side to side. Just explore your freedom here in your body to do what feels right. And ask yourself, what am I grateful for? Give thanks. When that feels complete, hug your knees to your chest. Give yourself a little hug and tell yourself, thank you. Thank you for taking this time for yourself. Good. Some of you are finding some organic movement. You can move in any way that feels right. Maybe you're rocking a little side to side. Maybe the knees are close together. Maybe you're letting them fall open wide. You always tailor our time together to suit your needs. You modify the practice to suit you. Good. And let's start to draw some circles with our knees. So with your hands on your kneecaps, just gently, you're going to start to draw your knees in opposite circles so that they're going wide and away from one another and then back around towards each other. Okay, and you went in one direction, it might be the opposite of me. Maybe you're kind of drawing these circles and then they're going away or maybe you're drawing the knees towards you. Yeah, just starting to tap into those hips. And as we're doing these circles, I want you to imagine that your hands are doing the work. Okay, just for a couple rotations, imagine that your hands are doing the work, and your knees and your hips are going along for the ride. Good. And then start to draw circles in the opposite direction. Okay, so we're still getting the knees to go away and close, but now we're moving them the opposite way. And you can feel the weight transferring a little heavier to your tailbone as the knees are away from you, and the weight transfers to the lower back as the knees come close to you. Getting synovial fluid moving in our hip joints. And your circles might be smaller than mine. That's okay. That doesn't mean you're a bad person. Good. And then for the last couple rotations, I want you to imagine that it's your hips that are doing the work. Okay, so you're stemming the movement from the hips and the hands get to go along for the ride. How does that change the experience? Again, there's no right or wrong here. We're just playing with different intention and seeing how that manifests in the body. How does it feel? It might be one way that feels better. Maybe you like the hands doing the work. Maybe you like the hips doing the work. Next time your knees come close to your body, just hug them nice and close. Hands can be over your shins or behind your thighs. And take your nose up towards your knees. So you're giving yourself a little squeeze. If you have knee issues, please take hands behind the thighs. What am I grateful for? Good. On the exhale, let's take head down to the earth. And we're going to keep the knees tucking into the body, knees together. Take your arms out to the side like a T, palms up or palms down. We're going to play with some gentle twisting. On an exhale, take your knees slightly over to the left. And as you inhale, come back through center. On your next exhale, take your knees slightly to the right. And then come back through center. And just start to play with that. Mindful movement. And as you do this, I really want you to play with this sense of counterbalance. So as your knees move to one side, the opposite shoulder and arm is rooting into the earth to create this counterbalance so you don't roll and fall. We're also using some core awareness. Okay, so you don't have to force your core to engage. It will engage if the knees go a little further. You can play with that. When does my core catch myself? How far can I go? Make sure that when you're inhaling and coming back to center, that you're letting the belly be soft. You're taking a break through the core. Okay, let's let ourselves come right into this twist. So the next time your knees go over to the left, you're just going to let them melt down. The feet can rest wherever is comfortable. We want to keep that right shoulder glued to the earth. So if you feel it peeling up a lot, then you're going to back out with the knees slightly. And you're at home, so if you had a pillow, you could always use extra props. I'm not telling you to use props, but you can prop a pillow under your knees for more comfort. And see if you can let yourself melt a little deeper into this pose. Maybe your head turns towards the right. You can ask yourself, what am I grateful for? Good. On the inhale, start to come back through center, gaze and knees move through center. And on the exhale, we're going to take it to the other side. Try to keep left shoulder connected to the earth, both shoulders connected to the earth. Knees rolling towards the right. Maybe the gaze starts to roll towards the left. You see if you can just soften it. So I love this pose. It's just a passive posture. We don't have to muscle into it. We don't have to work too hard. And like a lot of my yoga practice, remember that less is more. So you could play with those edges. You could play with backing out a little bit and see if that creates more space for breath. And ask yourself, what am I grateful for? Good. Use the next inhale to bring gaze and knees through center. Give your knees a little hug into the body. Take your nose up again towards your knees. Hands can be behind the thighs or over the shins. Stretching out that lower back. When lowering the head to the earth, you're going to want to grab your strap for this next sequence. So reaching down, getting your strap or your sarong or your towel, whatever you have. And start with both feet flat on the floor. Your knees are bent. Your spine is long and supported on the mat. We're going to extend our left leg up. You can have knee bent and get the strap over the ball of the left foot. Okay, so right across the balls at the base of the toes, flexing that foot. Okay, so you might already be feeling a stretch up the back of the left leg. And it's okay to have a bend in your left knee. You do not have to have the knee locked or straight. So it's really good to have a micro bend in the back of the knee. And I want your shoulders relaxing on the floor. So that's why we have the strap. So we can enjoy this leg stretch, but still keep the shoulders connected to the earth. And try to imagine some heaviness coming down through your left hip. Okay, connected through the back of the pelvis. And if you want to deepen sensation, try sliding your right leg long on the mat. So you're sliding that heel away from you. Now you've got both legs straight, right leg on the floor, left leg reaching up to the sky. And send some energy through the ball of both feet. Beautiful. So feet are flexed. Start to ride the wave of your breath. Use the inhale to find length through the spine, through the legs. And as you exhale, you might sink a little bit deeper, drawing left leg towards you. Try not to force anything. Good. Now I want you to take the strap into your left hand. And you're going to use your right hand as a counterbalance. We're going to start to open our left leg over to the left as the right hand goes to the right, so we don't tip over. And again, you can keep a bend in the knee. You just take it as far as feels good for your body. Nice and heavy through the right side body. Try not to roll towards the left. Okay, you're feeling a stretch, maybe on the inner thigh, the groin. You want that to be a comfortable stretch. Good. On the inhale, let's bring the left leg back up to center. Take the strap into the opposite hand over to your right hand. And I want you to take your left thumb and place it down into your left hip crease. Okay, so you're gonna just wiggle that thumb into the hip crease and start to lengthen your left hip down and away from you. And once you've got that anchor, you can start to draw your left leg slightly to the right. Oh, that feels so good. So this is a great one for getting into the IT band. It's kind of like our hamstring, but it's on the outer side of our thigh, not the back of the thigh. I'm also feeling this in my hamstring. And the back of your pelvis is neutral. We're not going into a twist just yet. We will. Good, and then start to let yourself go a little deeper. Let the back of the pelvis start to peel up. So the left side of the pelvis peels up, and you're going to take that leg down towards the earth. You can reach left arm out at shoulder level. And if you need to deeply bend your knee to be comfortable and supported in your lower back, that is okay. Take care of your body. Good. Chest is nice and open. Big breaths. What am I grateful for? So let's use the buoyancy of the inhale to come back up through center, nice and mindfully, using the core. And release that leg down. Bend both knees. You can just set your strap over to the right side for a second. Walk your feet as wide as your mat. And let your knees tip one side and then the other. Windshield wiper your knees. Now let's prepare to do that sequence on the other side. We're going to start in that neutral position, both soles of the feet on the earth. Grab your strap. Hook the strap around the ball of the right foot. Start to extend that right leg up to the sky. And make sure that your shoulders are relaxed onto the earth. Your elbows can be slightly bent. And take it here for a couple breaths before you decide to go deeper. I want you to start imagining just tacking a little bit of a weight down through the left hip socket. You can imagine that that leg bone is just plugging right into your hip. And then start to maybe play with going a little deeper. Maybe that just means drawing right leg towards you, or maybe you want to experiment with extending left leg long on the mat. Both feet are bright, sending energy through the balls of the feet. Remember to have that little micro bend in the back of the right knee. Just take your awareness for a second. If your left leg is long, do you feel something on the top of your left thigh? I always feel this in my left hip flexor once I extend that, a beautiful little stretch on the top of my left thigh. It might not be as loud as the stretch that's happening on the back of my right thigh, but it's there. So let's take the strap into the right hand. Prepare for that counterbalance. Using your left hand, you're going to start to lower right leg out to the side, left arm out to the left. Staying nice and heavy through the left side of the body, finding that stretch for the inner thigh. And that increases the stretch that I feel for my left hip flexor in the top of my left thigh. You might have your left knee bent. See where you're at. Play with the different nature of inhale and exhale in these poses as we hold them for a couple breaths. Feel that expansion of inhale. What do I feel in my body? And that sinking, settling, grounding of your exhale. Okay, let's use the inhale to come up through center. Take the strap into the opposite hand, into your left hand. Take that right thumb, press it down into your hip crease. I have to kind of wiggle it in there. And then think about sending and grounding, anchoring that right hip down and away from you. So you're creating length through the right side of your body. And then you're going to gently guide the leg across the body, ever so slightly to the left. My neighbors are starting to practice the violin. This should be interesting. Good. And then let the back of the pelvis start to peel up as you come a little deeper into that twist. Let your right leg start to come down towards the left. You can use your right arm stretched out as counterbalance to keep the right shoulder connected as you come into this twist. Feel free to bend your right knee. That's going to be more supportive. Chest is open. So let's use the buoyancy of the inhale to come up through center. And releasing the strap down. You can move it out to the side. Bend both knees, hug them into your chest. Rock a little side to side. And take your knees together. Draw your nose up towards your knees. And we're going to make our way up to seated. So getting there however you can. I'm a big fan of rolling to one side, using my hands to support myself when coming up. Good. Finding your easy seated pose. So grabbing all that goodness, pulling it back and away, find your sits bones. Reach up nice and tall through the spine. See if you can start to relax your shoulders, maybe imagine broadening through your collarbone. And let's take the right ear to the right shoulder. Chin down across the chest. Left ear to left shoulder. And start to move back and forth at a pace that serves you. Opening up the neck. Oh my gosh. So since things are starting to slowly open up here, I'm noticing the level of noise is definitely increasing. So this would be a good time to ask myself, what am I grateful for? Good, let's bring the head up through neutral. Take your hands in front of your heart. And we're gonna sweep the arms out and up with an inhale. And I want you to ask yourself, what am I grateful for? Take up lots of space and start to gather whatever it is that comes to mind. Gather it between your hands and then draw that down into your heart. You can follow hands with your gaze. Let's do that at least 3 more times at your own pace. Asking yourself, what am I grateful for? Opening up the chest. Whatever comes into mind, drawing that into your heart. A couple more times at your own pace. One more time, whenever you get there. Good. On this inhale, I want you to sweep your arms overhead, but keep your arms extended up. Good. Arms overhead. And on an exhale, you're going to take right fingertips to the earth and take your juicy little side stretch. Try to get the shoulders down out of the ears. Notice if your shoulders kind of pop forward, that's where that opening of the chest comes into place, broadening through your collarbone. And then playing with our breath here on the inhale, we're going to sweep the left arm back, open up through the chest, maybe take your gaze back. And on the exhale, you're going to do a slight twist, threading that hand in between body and opposite arm. Let your spine round. Open up the back of the heart. Oh, this is so good for unlocking tension in our upper body. And then start to continue to move with your breath. Inhale, you're opening your chest. Exhale, you're opening the back of the heart. This is a great one if, I don't know if any of you are working from home. I know a lot of you are retired. Working at home from a desk or a computer, this can be a great one to just loosen up any blockages or tight spots or not. And when you come to the bottom of your next exhale, you're rounded. You're going to use the inhale to lift both arms, come up. Exhale to the other side. Left fingertips come down to the earth. Shoulders drop down out of the ears. Nice and heavy through the right sit bone. Enjoy that little side stretch. Breathing into wherever you need it. And starting to move with your breath. On your inhale, sweep right arm back, open the chest. And exhale, find that gentle little twist, threading hand in between body and opposite arm. Bow your head. Ooh. Getting into those little sticky spots underneath our scapula, our shoulder blades. Synchronizing movement to your own breath. Next time you come to the bottom of your exhale, preparing to come up for the inhale, both arms up. And on the exhale, you can just rotate your wrists as you start to lower your hands down. Good. Extending your legs long out in front of you. Give them a little shake. Maybe roll them in and out. Let's come onto hands and knees. So we're going to be on our knees for a little while. I know some of you have some knee issues, so you might want to just fold up the center of your mat, or even better, grab a cushion, grab a towel, take care of your knees. And if you can't put direct pressure on your knee, a good thing to do is actually put a rolled up towel under your shin so that your knee's not even touching anything. So take care of it. You find your tabletop position. Hands might be under the shoulders. They might be a little bit ahead. And you're pressing away from the earth. You're not letting yourself sink and collapse. Good, neutral spine. And then let's start to move the spine. On the inhale, you're going to lift the tailbone, open the heart, lift the gaze. What am I grateful for? On the exhale, tuck the tailbone, round the spine, bring the gaze to the navel. What am I grateful for? And start to move back and forth, opening up the spine, getting into the hips. And if you hear this little call from your body to veer off the train tracks, my body always is asking for a little bit of side-to-side motion in this. Listen to your body. You can start to loosen it up a little bit. Good. Finish your next breath, whether that be inhale or exhale, and then come to your neutral spine. And take a little break, pushing back to either child's pose, or if you need something more active, come up into your downward facing dog. Just take a moment to collect your breath. Ask yourself, what am I grateful for? And see if you can let go of any tension. Tension in the jaw, tension in the belly. Tension in the back. Let it soften. Even if you're in that active down dog, you might be moving, you might be walking the legs, you might be swaying the hips. See if you can find some ease in your posture. And then coming back to all fours. We're going to do some strengthening for our core and for our booty here. So I want you to walk your knees side by side. So they're not under your hip bones now. They're going to be right next to each other at the midline, side by side. Find the support of your hands. And on the inhale, you're going to extend your left leg back behind you as you open your heart and look up. And on the exhale, you're going to try to squeeze the nose and the knee towards one another. They don't have to touch. Start to move with your breath. Inhale, opening front body. Exhale, squeezing, drawing belly button towards the spine. If you're familiar with Ujjayi breath, that ocean sounding breath, slightly constricting the back of the throat, that can be really nice to do when we're doing a little bit more active, heated sequence. Give your mind somewhere to focus. Okay, next time you come to the top of your inhale, your leg is extended behind you. I want you to flex your foot, and we're going to drop the toes down to the earth. Good, connecting toes to the earth. I want you to shift your weight back to find a juicy little calf stretch. Good, I'm finding a little pulse. You might want to just hold and breathe. So you could do it static. You can make it dynamic. You could rock a little deeper, pointing the foot, toes still touching the earth. Find what works for you. Good, and then finding the weight even over your knees and over your hands, so a neutral position. We're gonna take those back toes and we're gonna hop them over to the other side. Okay, hop them over to the other side of your mat. And then start to look over the opposite shoulder back towards that foot. So you're getting really short and wrinkly on the one side and opening up all the way from the shoulder, side body, hip, down the side of the leg to that back foot. And on an inhale, take your gaze forward, take your foot back to neutral, left foot back in line with your hip, and watch this next transition. So you can watch me, we're gonna come into a side plank. So I'm gonna find the support of my right hand, I'm gonna pivot on my right knee, taking the foot behind me, so I have a little kickstand for support, and I'm gonna flip open into a side plank. Good, and then if you press your hips forward, you're gonna feel deeper sensations. So if your bum is kind of, you're folding at your hips and your bum's sticking behind you, you're not gonna feel as much. So find your core. Think about lifting through the underside, reach through that top hand. If you want more of a challenge, you could go right into full side plank. I'm not gonna demonstrate that because I don't want to do it. Good, are we still breathing? Your head is a beautiful extension of your neck. Try not to let your head drop. Let's start to come out of it. You guys, good job. We get a break now. I want you to find either child's pose. So especially for those wrists, you might want to get off those wrists. If you need to get off your knees and child's pose isn't comfortable, come right down onto your belly. Do a belly shavasana. Maybe make a little pillow with your hands, rock your hips.
And of course, down dog is always a great option too if you need something more active. Ah, take 3 breaths just to connect back to yourself. What are you grateful for?
And let's come to all fours. We're going to do that sequence on the other side. So find your support first, that tabletop position, lining your knees up side by side. On the inhale, you're going to start to float right leg up behind you as you open the heart and lift the gaze. And on the exhale, you're rounding the spine, squeezing the breath out of the body. Okay, so you're going to flow at your own pace, toning core and back body. So when we do these movements really slow, deliberate, they're very effective for toning our body. And next time you come to the top of your inhale, right leg is extended long behind you. I want you to flex your foot, drop the toes down into the earth. Find that juicy little calf stretch. If it's too much for your wrists, know that you can always take a break coming up onto fists, dropping down to forearms. So those of you that have your wrist issues, make sure that you do what you need to do to keep them happy, okay? Find that gentle pulse or wave, or just hold and breathe. You choose. And let's start to hop that foot over, hopping it over to the opposite side of the mat. Starting to deeply open through the right side of the body. Look over your left shoulder, back towards your right foot. And see if you can play with little micro movements, maybe dropping your left hip bone slightly so you're squaring your hips. How does that change my experience of this pose? Now let's take gaze back to neutral. Take your foot back to neutral. That right leg is still long behind us. We're going to pivot on our bottom knee. The foot comes behind us for support. We find support of the left wrist right under the shoulder. We're coming into side plank. Think about pressing your hips forward, opening up, stretching the front of the pelvis, the belly, the chest. You can hear the work in my voice as I'm talking you through this. Good, finding core. I hope you're still breathing. Good, and find that beautiful length in your neck. Try not to let the head drop. Beautiful extension of your spine, that beautiful head of yours. Oh. Okay, you're always allowed to back out before I cue you if you need to come out. And let's come out together. I'm ready to come out. And make your way back to whatever resting posture you want, your child's pose, downward facing dog, or belly shavasana, windshield wipering the leg. My wrists need a little bit of love. I'm just going to give them some self-touch, some healthy energy. Nice one for the wrists in your child's pose is to come up onto your fingertips, like little spider hands. It's a great counter pose to that flexion we were just doing. Oh, and that feels so good, breathing into the lower back. Ooh. Inhale, let's push up to all fours again.
we're just going to do one more hip opener before we come to some seated posture. So from here, tabletop, I want you to take your right foot forward in between your hands. Okay, the knee is tracking over the ankle, or it can be behind you. Just don't want the knee to be super flexed. And then you're going to walk the foot over towards the right side of your mat so you can bring the hand to the inside. Okay, so that starts to open up that hip a little bit more. And you can play with it. So we're coming into lizard pose. Right? Maybe you'll see a lizard in the background here. There's usually lots of little lizards in this property. And you could play with different things. So I have a greater degree of openness for this left hip flexor, so I could actually curl the toes in, lift my back knee, and set it back a little further, just creating a little bit more of an open. Doesn't mean you have to do that. And you can stay here just kind of relaxing into it a little bit more yin-like. Allow your head to bow down if that feels good. If you have a great degree of openness, you could start to lower down towards your forearms. And that's going to be really intense hip opener. I'll show you from the front what it looks like. Okay, so my hands are on the inside, and I'm starting to lower down. Okay, and I can feel that this is too intense for me, so I'm going to back up, come up a little higher. You could play with lifting that back leg. So many ways that we can play with this lizard pose. One of my favorite things to do is play with the outward rotation of this right hip. So just flexing the toes to protect my knee joint and starting to play with opening that knee to the side. Okay, so rolling towards the outer edge of my right foot. If I'm mirroring you guys, it would look like this. Woo, pretty intense. But I want you to take it to a place that feels good. Okay, let's start to back out of it. So if you lifted your knee, you're going to lower your knee. If you played with that outward rotation, I want you to bring the sole of the foot back to the earth. Start to slowly make your way back. Downward facing dog has probably never felt so good after that deep lunge. So you could try down dog if that's not available for your wrist, no problem. Come into child's pose, or maybe even a dolphin pose where you use your forearms in a downward facing dog. Good. Let's prepare to come into the other side. So once you feel ready, you're going to come up to all fours. You're going to take your left foot forward. I usually like to be there to give myself a helping hand. And you're going to walk the left foot over towards the left side of the mat so that you can get left hand on the inside of the foot. And then just start to play with it. Okay, you want to keep a nice, long, open spine. You could come up onto fingertips. You could use blocks or books also to lift the ground up to where you need it to be. And very, very important in this pose that you don't just clench down on your teeth and, push through any pain. Please don't do that. I want this to be enjoyable. I know it's an intense one. You just take it to the place that feels good for you. There's never any harm in doing less. Just play with, would you like to just bow your head and sink into this for a few breaths? How does that feel? Remember the modifications from the other side. You could play with lifting the back knee if you want something more to build more strength. You could play with that outward rotation of the left knee. Make sure you're flexing the toes to protect your knee joint. We want to feel this in the knee, not in the knee. You want to feel this in the hip or the bum. No tension in the knee. Good. All right, let's back out of it. I want you to move so mindfully, asking yourself, well, what am I grateful for? So grateful to come out of this pose. Ah. And find your counter pose. Might be downward facing dog, child's pose, belly shavasana. You're just finding what your body needs. Listen to that wisdom of your body. Good. Wherever you are, I want you to start to slowly make your way up to seated. Do seated posture before we come down into Shavasana. We're going to do bound angle, bringing the soles of the feet together, just rocking a little side to side to find your sits bones or giving yourself a helping hand. Let's focus on our upper body first, crossing left arm under right. I'm going to mirror you guys. And get a hold of your knees. Nice strong clasp of your knees, and then let your spine start to round. So start by tucking your tailbone, rounding your lower back, your middle back, that space between your heart, and then let your head relax forward. The knees are opening with gravity. You don't have to force anything. We're using that resistance of hanging onto the knees. We get this great opening, especially on the back of the heart. And see if you can let your head relax just a little more. Chances are we're holding it. Maybe you want to let out a little cleansing exhale, a sigh through the mouth. You could try moving your head a little side to side. Preparing to come up, we'll use an inhale to start to rock towards the front of the sits bones, straightening up through the spine. And then we're going to thread the opposite arm underneath. So taking your right arm underneath, get a hold of that knee, hang on nice and tight. Let the shoulders relax, start to round your spine again, come back into it. Just switching the cross of the arms. Relaxing the head. See if you can let your head relax a little more. Feel free to rock your head a little side to side. On an inhale, let's start to back out of the pose, straightening up through the spine. Uncrossing your arms, take them down towards your shins, maybe your ankles. And then you're gonna let yourself just start to tip forward. Now we're focusing more on the hips. You need to give yourself a helping hand, pulling any fleshy bits out of the way. Good. Nice forward fold, folding at the hips. You can let your head relax. See if that pulls you a little deeper into the pose. And again, you could try a couple cleansing breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth with a sigh, letting go of anything that no longer serves you. Good. On an inhale, start to use that inhale to lift up. You can use your hands to support you as you come up. Help your knees together. Extend your legs out in front of you. Puff up and open up your chest. Roll your shoulders back. Drop your chin. Wiggle your shoulders a little side to side. Start to prepare to come down onto your back. Coming into Shavasana, you can get there nice and slow. And if there's anything that your body's calling out for before you do Shavasana, you have some time to feel your freedom. When you're ready to come into Shavasana, you might have legs long or knees bent. Wherever you are, I want you to angle your pelvis in a way that you feel supported in your lower back. Let your arms be comfortable, maybe palms on your belly, maybe arms spilling out off your mat, palms up. Let yourself close your eyes and sink down into the support of the earth beneath you. Gratitude unlocks the fullness of life. It turns what we have into enough and more. It turns denial into acceptance, chaos to order, confusion to clarity. Gratitude can turn a meal into a feast, a house into a home, a stranger into a friend. You start to gather yourself, gathering awareness, bringing it to your breath, noticing that ebb and flow of your breath. As you feel the breath in the body, start to wiggle the fingers and the toes. Good. You can take your time, maybe rolling over to one side, curling up in a little ball. Whenever you feel ready to join me in seated, you're going to gather yourself up. You're going to find your Sukhasana, your easy seated pose, whatever that means for your body right now. We're going to seal the practice, ending it together by placing palms together in front of the heart. What am I grateful for? I'm going to lift the heart up to meet the thumbs.
Bowing the head towards the heart. So grateful for your presence, your energy. Thank you for sharing it with me this morning. Namaste.